Welcome back to Queens of the Damned, a horror podcast. This week, we're airing some of our unpopular opinions. Films we love that have been harshly reviewed by both critics and audiences. From the unironically good to the admittedly campy, we're here to defend their not-so-good names. Enjoy. So, I chose The Woman in Black, which I think that genuinely, unironically is a good film, although many people disagree with that. I mean, it's not gotten terrible reviews. Like, overall, you can go find some pretty good reviews. But it's got a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience, and I think like a 64% from critics. So, I mean, it wasn't the most successful.
That actually surprises me.
Wait, like in a good way, or?
No, like I thought it would have a higher score than that. It did worse than my movie.
Oh, really? I just went and found some of the lowest reviews on Rotten Tomatoes for this film, and they're actually the funniest ones that I could find too, because, oh my god. So, Amanda W. gives this film 1 star, and she says, different, weird, gross, scary, interesting, didn't liked. Sean B. gave it half a star, and he said, the women in black... Oh, God. I'm sorry. The women in black tires so hard to make it so eerie. Wait a second.
I'm sure it's supposed to be tries, right?
The women in black tires so hard to make it so eerie and frightening, but fails tremendously. The audio for this film is so quiet, so the tension that is built is just plain useless. The cinematography was worse than the audio because when Arthur Kipps goes into the house, all you could see was a black screen, and those scenes were quite vital. Dear Sean B., turn up the brightness on your television, please. That's for me. August C., 1.5 stars. If you drink, you might be able to add another half star. Stephen C., 3 stars. Even though the film is supposed to be about her and is even named after her, we get very little time with the woman in black, and when we do, it's a 2-dimensional portrait of a creature from hell, so it's hard to relate to her. What does she eat? What does she keep in the fridge? Her favorite song? These are just some of the questions that go unanswered, and as a result, it's highly unlikely that any young girls will want to be like the woman in black. That's a very feminist observation, Stephen C. And I actually wrote a paper talking about how, while The Woman in Black had many opportunities to be a feminist neo-Victorian film and novel, it failed. So ultimately there, I do agree with you, Stephen. And the last review is from Paul J. He gave it 2 stars. He says Daniel Radcliffe opens a lot of doors whilst things happen behind him.
I mean,
that's objectively true.
I was about to say, I do have to say, even though I did like this movie for the most part, that is a legitimate criticism.
It's objective. I mean, it is a thing that happens in the film. You can't deny it. So, I really enjoyed this film. It's based on the 1983 or 86 novel, I can't remember, by Susan Hill of the same name. And it has a very different ending, but ultimately the gist of it is the same. It's also a stage play, which is very good. If you ever get a chance to see it, you should go see it. It's really interesting. I don't remember the year this film came out because I didn't do any research. I've just seen it many, many, many times, and I really love it. Like I said before, it's a neo-Victorian ghost story. Very classical ghost story. Very formulaic in its plot. And it's about this solicitor named Arthur Kipps who is assigned to go to this rural town and sort through this woman's estate and find any relevant papers and bring them back to the office, etc. So he goes out to the house, Eel Marsh House, and of course there are a bunch of villagers there who warn him not to go but won't tell him why, because that's what happens in every single story. And he goes anyway, of course, because that's what happens in every single story. And it turns out that there's this woman, a ghost of a woman in black with a wasted face, and she appears to him, and every time she appears to someone in the town or in the house or in the graveyard, a child dies of a freak accident. And we come to find out that this is happening because a woman named Jeanette Humphrey, who was the deceased woman's sister, died after her child was taken from her. She was deemed mentally unfit to raise the child, and so her sister raised it. And they don't really explain that at all. But the child dies in a freak accident on the marsh. His carriage gets stuck and they sink. And she kills herself. And the woman has pledged to make everyone suffer, especially children and parents, for eternity without remedy. The ending is different between the play, the book, and the film. They're all different. The ending in the play and the book are kind of the same, but there's a twist in the play, and the movie takes a total turn. There's also like an 80s adaptation, I think, of this.
That's very
like
good.
A TV, made for TV. Yeah, I think I've seen a few scenes from it. So you should go watch that too.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of this, I don't even really know if I want to give it away. For me, there are differences, of course, in the way it ends, but I don't think it ultimately changes the message of the story for me. But they have twist endings, and none of them are happy. We'll just say that. I thought this film was extremely atmospheric. It's exactly what I wanted from a Victorian ghost story. It had the thunderstorms and the graveyards and the big old rambling house and the psychoanalytic way to look at the nursery as the womb of the house and all that wonderful stuff. And I don't know, it gave me what I was looking for. I think a lot of people did not like this film because they were expecting a conventional horror film. They didn't want a rehashing of the traditional kind of ghost story, and they thought there were too many jump scares. I know that there are jump scares in the film, but I don't mind them so much, and I think the things that scare me about the film are conceptual, not resulting from the jump scares. So I would disagree with the reason, I guess the way the people who were making the film were trying to scare you. I think conceptually it really gets at you in some way. I know both of you have seen this film. We should probably talk a little bit about what you guys thought of it. I know, Miranda, you said you didn't like it, but you saw it a really long time ago.
I saw it when it was in the theaters. I actually saw it on Valentine's Day.
Do you remember what year it was in the theater? Was it like 2013?
It had to be 2012.
Okay.
Because I think I was a freshman.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I also saw it in the theater.
And that's the only time that I saw that movie, to be honest. I just remember being kind of bored when I watched it. I think it was also my first time seeing Daniel Radcliffe in a movie that wasn't Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So that was weird for me too. And the ending is just now coming back to me. I just remembered what happened. But that's really all I remember about the movie was the ending. I don't have any specific qualms with it. I just remember being kind of bored.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that I think a lot of people didn't like it. I mean, a lot of them said they were bored. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was like a discrepancy between expectation and reality with what the film was, or if it was just that, I mean, there are so many different types of horror and people are into varying types of horror, and this one is just not it for some.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people said the story didn't make sense, which they were complaining because people were doing a lot of stupid things like, okay, people's lives are endangered because he goes out to this house, but yet they still won't tell him why. But that's a trope. That's like a convention of all of those classic don't go out there, stories. So it's hard to pick on this for that, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to go back, way, way farther back and pick on those types of stories. It's just, it adds that atmosphere and the sense of sinisterness to the story. If you think about it too much, you will not enjoy it.
I mean, I remember liking it at the time. I hated the ending. And I had not read the book, but having since read the book, I have to say the original ending is way, 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 way better. than the ending of the movie, which I found to be really cheesy. But I have to say, even though I remember liking it at the time, I probably could not tell you the plot for, like, if you had not just recapped it, for any amount of money. I remember enjoying it.
Oh, really?
I remember the creepy Victorian toys.
Yes.
It did not weird me out to see Daniel Radcliffe because I had seen him in a play. So I'd seen him outside of Harry Potter roles. But I honestly probably, had I not read the book, I couldn't tell you what it was about.
That's
But
kind of how I was really glad that.
It.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It just it stuck in my mind. So I've seen it a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen it many times.
And I have
and
not
I've read the
seen
book twice, and I've seen the play.
I have not seen it since I saw it in the theater.
Oh, yeah, of course. If I had only seen it once, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you either.
Yeah.
What it was about. There's a sameness about I don't know how to explain it. There's a sameness about the feeling of the story, and it just kind of blends together in your mind.
That is very true. I would, but I don't know. I see it more as like an homage to kind of older horror movies where, you know, it was like the creepy old house, and I mean, I don't know. I liked it at the time. I would give it a solid 3 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, and I think that was the opinion of a lot of people. A lot of the reviews... Actually, you know what? A lot of the reviews were 3 stars. A lot of them were 4.5 to 5 stars. And then a few of them were like 2, 1.5. And those were the funniest reviews because I think they held up the least. They gave the least amount of helpful supporting evidence for why the person did not like the film. But I guess I would have to say my one thing with this story, whether it be the play, the book, or the film, and it's only from an analytical perspective, is that neo-Victorian ghost stories are so good at reclaiming the Victorian era and reinserting marginalized voices and stuff, and this just does not do that. This, from the perspective of this male solicitor, this man who has power with the law, and kind of, there's, in that review that said that the woman in black has no personality and it's hard to relate to her, it's not that you have to have a ghost or a character that is good or likable or whatever, but she just wasn't fleshed out at all, and it really just validated Kipps's perspective about, oh, this woman is detestable and awful, and, you know, there was no, like, realm of understanding her pain at all. She was just like this canvas to prove that crazy bad mothers are bad.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. I've read some of her other books, and I think that was definitely a stylistic choice, is to write it almost as close to a Victorian novel as she could, right?
Right, so she wasn't using... But that's the thing, is that, like, she was doing that, but not, I guess... And it's weird, because she's written so many neo-Victorian novellas and novels, that she doesn't understand that the neo-Victorian genre does something different. She's just replicating...
Right, because I don't think...
Victorian...
I think that she's not interested in doing... Right? Do you see what I'm saying? She
Yeah, I know, I get it, but what a waste.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'll read this book again in my lifetime. I love it. But I mean, if I had to pick a thing that I didn't like about it, and then I thought, what a waste, it could have done more.
Right.
That's one of the things. Because if I want a Victorian novel, I can go back and read an actual Victorian novel.
Right.
Like, neo-Victorian just offers me so much more.
Exactly. No, I understand. So. I understand. I just, I think it was like a choice, like a stylistic choice.
She meant to do it. And also, it was written in the 80s, and I've read this really interesting article. I don't know who wrote it, and I don't know what it was called, but they were saying that this was a response to, like, women entering the workforce and being worried about what will happen to their children while they're at work. You know, like, what if I'm not there to take care of my kids, you know? Am I going to be considered a bad mother? Or will something awful happen to them? Or... You know, which makes sense in the, I guess, in the context of, because it was written so long ago, like 40 years now.
Yeah.
So, reflection of the time, I guess, too. Anyway, that's enough. We should go on to the next one. So,
for my unpopular opinion, I chose Ghostbusters 2016 because I absolutely love this movie. I cannot count how many times I've seen it. Every single time it's been on TV, I've watched it. And my mom and I have put the DVD in. I don't even know how many times. We just love this movie to death. And I have to say, before I start, that I grew up watching the Ghostbusters movies. I love those movies. They're my mom's favorite movies. Like, it's not a matter of, we're not fans. It's a good movie. That's what it is. So, Ghostbusters was directed by Paul Feig, and it had Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones, Kristen Wiig, and Kate McKinnon as the Ghostbusters this time. So, I was actually surprised. It had a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. I thought it was going to be a lot worse than that. But the audience liked score is a 51%.
Because
oh wow,
neckbeards are awful.
Yeah. Yep. So, in an article titled Ghostbusters More Culturally Important Than Well Made by Kaylin Corrigan, she says, with a script that feels just as lazy and inept as the girl's eye candy male secretary, in addition to overtly awful CGI ghosts and in-your-face wink wink nudge nudge actor cameos from the original film, the cold hard fact is that Ghostbusters is overall a pretty bad movie. Most of the blame for the random sporadic storytelling can be placed on the script supervisor's shoulders. But as it tends to be a pattern for Feig to present films that are meant to feel significant but wind up feeling incomplete, it's only fair that he takes credit for the shortcomings of his latest endeavor as well.
Lies.
So, yeah, I know. And actually, that is an article from Bloody Disgusting, and I love Bloody Disgusting to death. They're one of my favorite sites, and one of the things I love about them is that they will have, like, differing opinions on their site from different authors, which I think is really cool because sometimes places can get very have the same opinions. But I did kind of expect to see that on Bloody Disgusting. I wasn't really all that surprised. And then this one was funny. I had to go on Twitter. Like, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes and look at all of the audience reviews, like, they're funny to read, but they're so freaking long. They are paragraphs of just anger. And I got to a point where I was like, why are you so angry at life? And I just gave up. It's like, I'm done. I'm going to Twitter where the funnier angry people are at. And I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
Are they just mad that, like, women were cast in it?
No.
Yes. Yes. And not only was it ladies.
Yeah.
Not only was it ladies, but it was also ladies for, like, Melissa McCarthy, who they do not find physically attractive, even though I think she's a very beautiful woman. But
she is. She's gorgeous.
They do not find her physically attractive because she's fat. And so why should we see her on screen? I don't want to have sex with her, so she has no value to me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Leslie Jones, especially. Poor thing.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because I remember when this movie came out and being on social media, and that's what it was. That's what people were saying all the time, was that it was very clearly this is an all-woman Ghostbusters, that is a problem sort of thing. But now, when I go back, all I see is, this has nothing to do with an all-woman cast in every single article.
Right.
Every single one, they say that. And it gets to the point where you're like, okay, well, if it's not that, then why does every single person have to start their article with saying it's not about the women?
I'm not racist,
just
but...
saying. Exactly.
Right.
That's the equivalent to it. But I found a tweet that was at least a little bit more honest about them being misogynistic. So...
Right.
So, at School Trashers on Twitter, and actually this is really funny because when we were talking about doing this episode, I said, I have a feeling all of the comments are going to be akin to Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
This is perfect. This is perfect. So, he said, how you know hashtag Captain Marvel is hashtag Ghostbusters 2016 2.0. Actress or director bashing men on Twitter. Brie Larson.
Sure.
Movie studio tries to save their movie. Disney.
Sure.
Websites try to protect the movie by lying. Rotten Tomatoes.
Sure.
Hashtag SJWs and hashtag feminazis defend the movie.
I love that, like, because Brie Larson tweets about feminism and feminist issues, that's bashing men.
Yeah.
I love that.
But she did actually say something about, like, white cis men, this movie is not for you. She did say that. So, at least that's, yeah. That was fairly recent.
Maybe that was, like, divinatory and not something she's declaring.
So that's what they're getting that from. But it's still ridiculous, and it was coming from a place of everybody is bashing me because I'm a freaking woman. So, like, I don't know. She was fair to say that. But yeah, I mean, everything that's happening with Captain Marvel is the same thing that happened with Ghostbusters. I just thought those were kind of funny. Rachel, are you looking up that tweet?
Yes, because I follow her on Twitter, and I don't remember her saying anything like that. And that doesn't sound like something she would say unless it was, like, a tongue-in-cheek joke that these people also cannot take a joke.
Yeah.
Because she just doesn't seem... I mean, I follow her on, like, all social media because I love her. And it just doesn't seem like something she would say unless it was as a joke.
Let me see.
It might have been in a reply to something, too.
That's all that I could think of, is that, like, she was saying that as a joke. Like, oh, well, maybe this movie's not for you. You know, kind of, like, as a funny thing. I don't... You know, just doesn't seem like something she would say. Because she's
and there's a chance...
She's very about... You know, I don't know.
There is a chance that it was kind of,
Photoshop.
People kind of edited what she said, because I didn't see... I don't know if it came out as a tweet or what. I was seeing articles about it. Yeah, let me see.
I mean, the only other thing that I could see her saying it as is kind of like a, you know... white men, you're constantly getting these superhero movies that cater to you. Well, I'm sorry, maybe this one doesn't cater to you. Right? But to me, that's a valid thing to say.
Yeah, and I thought, like, maybe she was already getting that flack, so it was like, well, apparently it isn't for you, white cis.
Right.
You know,
here's what
that's what she's been seeing, right? You know, as white cis men on Twitter saying, you know,
well, they start screaming and crying. Go ahead, sorry.
Here's what it is. I think this is what it is. It has nothing to do with Captain Marvel. She said at an award ceremony, I don't need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him. I want to know what it meant to women of color, biracial women, to teen women of color. So I have a feeling that they're just, like, angry at Brie Larson, and they just, like, took that and they were like, she hates white men.
Which, like, that is who the movie was made for. Because that was one of the things when that movie came out, is a lot of the reviews were not that great. But then people were pointing out, you know, the majority of film reviewers are white, older men. And not every movie is made for them. So it's kind of like, who gives a shit if you didn't like it? If the little girls that this movie was made for and little boys that this movie was made for liked it, then that's what matters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was about to say, I really, as, like, her close personal friend, I don't see her saying that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take much for people to turn it in. Well, actually, sorry about white cis men.
Yes.
It doesn't take much for them to turn it into you must hate all men.
I mean,
it happens 1,000 times every day. You'll say something completely nuanced and respectful, and they'll just get you hate men out of it.
There are just so many times where I look at men, and we're so off topic, but there are just so many times where I look at some of these men on Twitter and social media, and I just think, you know, it must really suck to be a man. Like, I just remember when there was some different, like, heart emoji that came out for the iPhone, because, like, the original heart emojis all had, like, little sparkles on them. and then one of them that was just a red heart came out, and I think it was John Mayer, who I hate, tweeted something about, like, oh, finally a heart that, you know, we can use and not feel girly. And people were just like, you know, it must really suck to be a guy. Like, if this is really what you have to spend your time thinking about, like, damn, that sounds like a miserable life. I mean, you want to talk about people who have all the power and are completely miserable all the time. Mm-hmm. I just don't get it.
It's fucking true.
Yeah,
like,
I don't get it.
Patriarchy works for no one.
No.
It works for no one.
No.
Listen, like, it's not working for you either.
No.
You're not happy.
Right.
Anyway, back to Miranda's movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We were talking about Ghostbusters, weren't we? Okay. Wow.
Sorry.
All right. So, I wanted to say the first time that I said I loved this movie, I was freaking scared because I said it on Twitter, and everyone knows Twitter is kind of scary. You have to kind of walk on eggshells on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so I put it out there on Twitter and everything. Everything was fine. I mean, I don't have, like, any followers. I apologize to the people who do follow me and talk to me, but there's, like, 1 or 2 of you. So nothing happened, but it's still, it's, like, it's scary.
Right.
But, like, I don't know. I'm trying to just, like, accept the fact that I'm gonna have opinions that people don't like. Mm-hmm. But also, I know there are people out there who love Ghostbusters, so I need to just talk about Ghostbusters. Anyways, so the 4 Ghostbusters, their names are Abby, Patty, Aaron, and Holtzman. And basically, they grabbed 4 of the funniest women in Hollywood for this movie. Uh-huh. They're not the only funny women in Hollywood, but they are some of the funniest that we have right now. They all have their own unique sense of humor, so it's not like the same things being thrown at you. They're all very, very different, but they work so well together. And one of the comments that was in that first review that I mentioned was that the special effects are terrible. One of my favorite things about this movie...
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this movie is how beautiful it is. It's such a colorful movie. I love it. Every time I'm watching it, I'm just kind of sitting there like, whoa, all the colors. Like, I love it. And, like, does it look real? No! It's not supposed to.
Right.
like you said, it's a Ghostbusters movie. It's just supposed to be 4 women fighting ghosts.
Right.
So, let it just be that and be pretty. But, like, one of the other things that... one of my favorite things that people freaked out about with this movie, too, that I will never forget, because it was the best thing I ever heard, was Kevin. Kevin.
Oh my god, he was so good, though! He was so funny!
He was! But, it's so funny. I think it was someone who told me, or someone told me that they heard someone say this, but a guy was mad because Kevin is a really sexist character because he's treated like an object and he's stupid. Chris Hemsworth plays a beautiful, downright vapid secretary, a role women are used to in film.
Yes.
and that's the joke.
Try it out for a fucking change.
Right,
Jesus.
like he said, that's the joke.
He embraced it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And he looked so good in those glasses. Oh my god.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And one moment that I love in this movie is when they're interviewing Kevin, and Abby and Aaron are sitting across from him, and Aaron says something about how beautiful he is because she's obsessed with him this whole movie, and she says that to Abby, and Abby turns to her and she's like, Kevin? Oh, not Kevin. And I turned to my mom and I was like, that is like a perfect representation of people who are attracted to appearance and people who are attracted to personality.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that joke. I thought that was just hilarious. Yeah. But Kevin is so great in the whole movie, and I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that the joke just like went right over his head and just he didn't get it. I wasn't even mad. I thought it was so funny.
It's like, but they're looking for a reason to be angry.
Yeah, pretty much.
They want to be angry all the time, which is bizarre to me. So
yeah, it is pretty strange.
I thought we were supposed to be the snowflakes.
I know.
Exactly.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, like, the movie is just supposed to be fun. And I think I've said this quite a few times on this podcast. Some movies can be just fun. They don't all have to be a profound Oscar-winning movie.
Yes.
Some movies can just be fun. And that's what this movie is. It's fun. I have like a little bit of a theory about why it didn't work out. But I mean, at the end of the day, it pretty much just comes down to it's 4 women Ghostbusters. But
yeah,
like, I sit and I think about Evil Dead and how successful the Evil Dead remake was. And I mean, essentially they did a gender bend of Ash. But the difference between Evil Dead and this movie was that when they advertised that movie, they did not say anything about them making the main character a woman instead of being Ash. But with Ghostbusters, it was advertised as 4 women Ghostbusters.
Right.
So right from the get-go, people hated it. Just right out of the barrel. Like, people just hated that movie. So, I don't know. Like, it shouldn't be a problem. But it kind of is right now. So, I don't know.
I think it also has something to do with women in comedy. I think, like, genre is a big thing.
Everybody knows women aren't
female...
funny, Nikki.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of female comedian friends, and it's fucking hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're stuck with a bunch of dudes. They just don't hire female comedians.
Right.
And there's a huge prejudice surrounding how women aren't funny.
Right.
Well,
and that was a lot of the comments too, is that people said none of these women were funny at all. And I've seen this movie I don't know how many times, and I laugh my ass off every time I watch it still.
Right.
It's so good.
Right. Well, and I think that, you know, if we're to use Evil Dead as an example, I mean, Evil Dead, obviously a lot of people have heard of it, but I would not say that Evil Dead is on the same cultural touchstone level as Ghostbusters, which for a lot of people was kind of the defining movie of their childhood, right?
That's true, yeah.
And I think that they just had this rage of, how dare you mess with this thing from my childhood, which the original Ghostbusters movie is really good, but it's not like this sacred object, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like they're remaking, like, Citizen Kane, you know? Like, and that's gonna sound bad, but, like, I do like the original Ghostbusters movie, but it's not, like, the greatest piece of cinema that's ever existed, and how dare you ever... And it wasn't even a remake. It was just, like, a redo. It was just, like, kind of the same plot, but, like, with different characters. I don't know. I really just didn't... I didn't get it. And it really pisses me off that Jason Reitman, whose dad,
I was just going to talk about that.
Yep. Oh my god. I was livid. Go ahead.
Okay. This is part of my notes, so let me talk about it. Okay. So, a new Ghostbusters is set to release in 2020 by Jason Reitman, like you said. The drama on Twitter, man. He called it his love letter to the fans, and that it's gonna hand the movie back to the Ghostbusters fans. Wow. And of course it wasn't met without backlash from the Ghostbusters team. So, Rachel, did you ever see Leslie Jones' tweets about this whole thing?
I did. And God bless Leslie, because she really got the shit end of the stick with this movie. She got, like, all the abuse.
Oh, yeah. She was... Yeah, I followed Leslie Jones for quite a while, and she had to deactivate her Twitter because it got so bad. People were so racist.
They hacked her cloud or whatever and posted her nudes.
Oh my god, I didn't hear about that.
Because they were so mad.
That's ridiculous.
I think we should point out that Jason Reitman is the son of the original director.
Right.
Yeah. For people that don't know.
So after all of this was announced, Leslie Jones tweeted, "So insulting, like, fuck us, we don't count. It's like something Trump would do. Trump voice, gonna redo Ghostbusters, better with men, will be huge. Those women ain't Ghostbusters. Ugh, so annoying, such a dick move, and I don't give a fuck, I'm saying something." And then she continued on to say, when the point is, if they make this new one with all men and it does well, which it will, it might feel like boys are better. It makes my heart drop. Maybe I could have used different words, but I'm allowed to have my feelings just like them. And then Paul Feig appeared to agree with her, actually, because he quote tweeted her comments saying, "Leslie spoke her truth and I support her. I am very open to Jason's new version of Ghostbusters, but I'm also sad that our 2016 team may not get to bust again. We all are. We're forever proud of our movie." And Paul Feig and Jason Reitman are on good terms because after that article came out about him handing the movie back to the fans, all of this stuff kind of blew up, and it was kind of a question of, okay, how are these two going to relate to each other? But they are on good terms. Paul Feig tweeted something about, well, like I said, about how he supports the movie, and he tweeted to Jason Reitman about that. So they're on good terms, but I don't know. I'm on Leslie's side with it. Like,
oh, me
it's
too.
It's gonna look terrible if it does well and it's an all male cast, which it will be.
And I don't even have a problem with them doing another version with an all male cast that maybe does better. What really bothered me was the comments of handing it back to the fans. Like, so the female fans who loved the 2016 version, they don't count. They're not real fans. Which, of course, is what they think.
Or even the male fans.
Right, or even the male fans that liked it. Because I know men that liked it. I just, that was really disappointing, because I really liked a lot of Jason Reitman's movies.
Yeah. Well, he responded again by saying something like, "Wow, that came out wrong. I have nothing against Paul Feig's movie, and I loved it, and blah, 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 blah." And it was like, well, you already said what you said.
Yeah, but
and it's kind of hard to get that. It's hard to get that twisted, though. I mean, what else could you have meant?
I don't know. My philosophy, as I think I've said to you guys before, is just, never tweet. Because sometimes I think, it is possible that he really was just not thinking when he said that. And but now that it's out there, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So it's and we don't know what he was thinking. I mean, so it's so hard. It's so hard because, I just, no one should ever be on Twitter. End of story. Though I'm on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
But
it's a pretty terrible place.
I'm on there all the time. But yeah.
Anyways, that's pretty much what I have to say about Ghostbusters. If you've been avoiding it because of what everybody says about it, please just go see the movie. It's worth your time. It's so much fun. A lot of people are trying to say it's a political movie. It's not.
It's a comedy.
It's not. It's not political at all. People are saying that just because it's an all-female cast, and so they think they're trying to make a statement. That's not what it is. It's a fun movie. Go watch it. Have some fun.
So how is it... I don't understand the logic of that, because it's like, how is it not a political movie then if they do an all-male cast? How does it change when it's women?
Right. Well, being a woman is a political stance, apparently, so...
Yes.
Well, it's not the norm, right?
Yes.
So it's...
Yes.
The logic is so stupid behind hating this movie, so...
It is. I agree.
I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. I've seen it twice. I want to own it. I just never got around to buying it. But that is one that I would want to own.
I bought it a couple years ago at a Black Friday sale for like $7 on Blu-ray, and it was great. I saw it in the theater and loved it, and I've watched it since, and it really is still good. So it's such, and I have to say, I had a huge crush on Kate McKinnon in this movie too. Her hair,
God,
she's beautiful with that haircut, that like asymmetrical with the curls. Oh my god, it
gorgeous.
did it for me.
Yes.
Between she and Chris Hemsworth, I was just like, this is amazing.
That's great.
No, I felt the exact same way. It's been a long time since I've had a hard crush on a
I
woman,
know.
and I was like, oh my
that
god,
was
look
it.
at this.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Look at this woman. She is gorgeous.
And so
It's
funny.
so funny.
Well, Rachel,
Oh
what do you
boy,
have for
okay.
us?
My pick is a movie that, okay, I would not say I think is like a legitimately great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that it is a fun movie, and it's a movie that I enjoy. Would I watch it again? Yes. Would I own it? Probably not. But I like it if it's on TV. So, I chose Jason X, which is basically Jason in space.
Woohoo!
This movie had a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is 1/6.
What?
Yep, that is a 1/6. So
Wow.
even the audience score is only like a 50, which is actually better than I thought it was going to be. And actually,
Yeah.
upon looking this up, I did find a few articles of people defending this movie, so that makes me feel a little bit better. So some of the reviews were pretty brutal. So, the Globe and Mail Toronto said, "This time the action takes us out of the usual campgrounds and girls in underwear into the realm of outer space, where no one can hear you screaming enough already." Let's see. The Boston Globe said, "The only chills to be found are courtesy of your theater's central air system." And the Los Angeles Times says it's like a dinner theater version of the Alien movies. And Roger Ebert, who I love, I really miss Roger Ebert. There have been so many movies that have come out, and I've thought, God, I would just love to read Roger Ebert's, like, absolute pan of this movie. But he gave Jason X half a star. And his review says, okay, quote, "This sucks on so many levels," unquote. Dialogue from Jason X. "It's rare for a movie to so frankly describe itself. Jason X sucks on the level of storytelling, character development, suspense, special effects, originality, punctuation, neatness, and aptness of thought." And he says that the movie was released on the 16th anniversary of Chernobyl, another famous meltdown. So it's safe to say, like, a lot of critics did not like this movie. A lot of fans did not like this movie. So this came out, I believe, this came out in 2002. It was originally supposed to come out in 2000. It was shelved, but Freddy vs. Jason was stuck in development hell. So they ended up editing and releasing this movie first to sort of get interest back into Jason so that they could get Freddy vs. Jason greenlit and actually get that movie made. So this movie came out about like 15 years after the previous Jason movie. And the previous Jason movie is called Jason Goes to Hell. And at the end of the movie, he's stuck in hell. Well, at the beginning of this movie, he's no longer in hell. We don't know why he's not there anymore, but he's not. Instead, he's chained up in a research facility that's now housed at Camp Crystal Lake. And our hero, this girl named Rowan, forces him into cryo sleep. And as she's like forcing him into it, he stabs her in the stomach. And so, I don't know, I can't remember. This sets off some kind of chain reaction, and she goes into cryo sleep too. So 455 years later, I don't know why it's like that exact amount, but it is, a group of students lands on Earth, which is now a deserted planet, and they find the chamber. They decide to open it because, like, why not? And they decide to bring Jason and Rowan onto their ship. Now, keep in mind that Jason is obviously this huge man wearing a hockey mask, literally holding his machete above his head. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like, let's bring him on the ship. I'm sure it's going to be fine. So they bring him on, they unfreeze Rowan, and they leave Jason the way he is. But the student's Professor Lowe, who's leading the trip, is in serious debt. So he calls somebody, I don't know, his bookie, his financier, I don't know who this guy is, who recognizes Jason's name and says, oh, we can sell his body to a collector. So I don't know if there's like corpse auctions in the future. Again, this is not really explained, like many things in this movie. But, you know, oops, Jason unthaws. And he starts killing people like left and right. And he kills them in kind of neat ways. Like, one person is, like, screwed onto a giant screwdriver. And, like, one person is, like, cut in half in, like, a giant banana. And this one girl, the first person he kills after waking up, he, like, dunks her face in liquid nitrogen. And then smashes her face on the counter, which makes it break into a million pieces. Yeah, which is actually, like, kind of
awesome.
neat. Yeah, it's kind of neat. So, as he's working his way through the ship, you know, the students are trying to get away, they're trying to fight back, blah, 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 blah. So, Jason ends up being killed by his android. And so they throw his body, and she, like, does a number on him. She, like, rips his arm off, and, like, rips his chest out, and rips his legs off, and, like, all this stuff. So, they throw his body. Now, why they don't just shoot it into space, I don't know. But they throw it into what they think is a damaged medical station. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you cannot see coming, the medical station rebuilds Jason. And somehow knows to not only rebuild his body, but give him a brand new hockey mask. I don't know how they know that, but they do. And so now we have Bionic Jason, which is actually kind of neat. He basically starts killing people left and right. He punches the android so hard that her head goes flying off. And so the students are trying to get, like, the escape pod detached from the rest of the ship so they can get away. So in order to distract Jason, they create a holographic version of Camp Crystal Lake filled with super horny camp counselors who are running around saying stuff like, we just love premarital sex, and all this, like, ridiculous stuff. And so Jason, of course, has to attack them because they're having sex. And so he, you know, he starts to stalk and try and attack the camp counselors. But then he figures out that it's a hologram. And just as he figures it out, they are getting in the escape pod. So, as the escape pod's kind of taking off, the rest of the ship explodes. And that sends Jason hurtling towards the escape pod. And one of the students sacrifices himself and intercepts Jason in space and steers him toward Earth 2, which is another Earth's atmosphere, which burns them both up. And then the movie ends with two horny teenagers sitting by a lake and seeing what they think is a falling star. And they go to investigate as we see Jason's mask sinking to the bottom of the lake. And that's how the entire franchise ends, because there have been no new Jason movies since then. There was Freddy vs. Jason, which obviously took place in the 2000s, so that would be technically considered before this movie. And that's it. That's the end of this storied, terrible franchise. So is this movie great cinema? No. But it is what I think a Friday the 13th movie should be. The jokes are kind of stupid. They're actually extremely stupid. But the writer seems to understand that the jokes are stupid. He plays into, like, every trope for fun. Like, people are constantly having sex. People are splitting off from the group and saying stuff like, let's split up, guys. I'm sure that's a great idea. Right? So they're doing it on purpose. Mm-hmm. There's the professor character who only cares about money. So you know that he's gonna somehow fuck the group over and bring Jason back to life. And I mean, this movie, I like it because it knows exactly what it is and what the audience wants. And that's to see a bunch of people get killed real good. Right? That's all I want from my slasher movies 99% of the time, is people to get killed in increasingly bizarre and creative ways. And that's what this movie does. And then I actually think that the scene where they put up the holographic Camp Crystal Lake is legitimately funny and a legitimately good send-up of these movies and how Jason is almost hardwired to kill teenagers that are having sex. It's like he can't stop himself. He's like chasing after them, and then as soon as he sees the teens having sex, he like automatically is like, no, they have to die. So I thought that was cute. And David Cronenberg, who we've discussed before with the movie Broods, who I love, loved this script so much that he agreed to make a cameo in the beginning of the movie. So for me, it's just an all-around winner. I mean, I don't know if either of you guys have seen it.
I have like flashbacks to seeing it when I was very young.
Okay.
But I don't remember it hardly at all.
I have not seen it.
Okay. It is, if you just want to like kill 2 hours on an afternoon, and to me, it's not aggressively bad. Like, there are a lot of Friday the 13th movies that are horrible. The majority of them, actually all of them probably, are horrible movies. But this one, I feel like, is fun, and that's why I like it. Mm-hmm. I like it because it's fun. Mm-hmm. It does not take itself seriously. It knows that what we came for is to see Jason in space. And you know what? We're seeing Jason in space. So I'm happy. I got my money's worth with this movie.
Yeah. I think it would be really hard to blend those two things, like the slasher movie with Jason and the space movie, and make it unironically good.
Right.
Like, that would be so difficult.
Exactly.
So I think it's a smart move from what you're saying that they made it this way.
Exactly. And this is the 10th movie in this franchise. So...
I mean...
Right.
Yeah.
So they had to do something. I mean... Especially the last, like, couple, like, especially the one where he goes to hell, is just not, I mean, it's an awful movie. There's nothing fun or funny or creative about it. It's just an awful slog to get through. So this one was really fun, and I think it's too bad that they didn't continue with this vein, though obviously they just quit making these movies altogether. Besides, there was a remake, but that was also horrible, so...
I liked the
Miranda,
remake.
I see your face. No.
I liked it.
I hated it.
And there are people out there who like it. Thank you very much.
I believe you. I would say I didn't hate it as much as I hated the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Oh my god.
Which made it so the girl had to be saved by her boyfriend at the end.
That one was so bad.
Yeah, it was horrible. But I didn't love the remake of this. It just came across as like a really generic early 2010s slasher movie. There was nothing standout about it. But if it was on TV, I would not change the channel. So, you know, it wasn't that bad.
Freddy vs. Jason is my favorite.
I did enjoy that movie.
I love that movie with all of my heart. It's just so great.
I did enjoy that movie. But that one I feel like is more beloved, whereas Jason X is not. Though it seems like people are reappreciating this movie. Mm-hmm. Which I am very happy about, because I do think that it's a good example of kind of a fun, stupid slasher movie that knows that it's just supposed to be... It knows that it's supposed to be fun and stupid, right? It's not trying to do this, like, weird, let's explore the mythology behind so-and-so. Like, no. Nobody is going to see the slasher movie for that. Right?
No. Same with, like, Scream 4. For me, I liked that one.
Oh.
And it just, you know, there's that... I mean, after 3 movies, and then another, it's like, it's just... It's supposed to be a fun thing.
Right.
You know, like...
Well, I think we picked a really good time to do this episode, because I think there's been a resurgence lately of people going back and appreciating movies that have been hated for
and some of them are
time.
questionable. There are quite a few people who are trying to defend Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is not a good movie in any sense of the word. But, you know, I guess if people want to have bad taste, that's their opinion.
What's the reason they're defending it?
Because they claim that everyone only hates it because Michael Myers is not in it. Which to me, is not accurate. It's not a good movie, Michael Myers or no Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think it has a good plot idea, but it's executed horribly.
Okay.
I want to know why it's called Season of the Witch.
Yeah, they never really explain that because there's not a witch in it. Nor...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my thing that I always go back to is explain the title, please.
Yeah, there's no witch in it.
I need someone to tell me. Yeah.
But that's one that I don't agree with people, like, reappraising. But, you know, to each their own. I'm sure people would say that we were crazy for liking these movies, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Jason X, guys. Watch it. You know, if you ever see it on HBO or Netflix, I don't even know if it's streaming anywhere, but it should be, because it's a lot of fun. I would watch that over any of the other Friday the 13th movies any day.
Listeners, what movie do you love genuinely that other people hate?
Yes, send us your hot takes.
Email us. Email us. Facebook, Twitter,
Instagram,
etc.
Maybe we can do a poll or something about the movies we chose.
Yeah.
I would love people's feedback on their own as well, because it would be nice to start reading listener opinions before next episodes. I think that would be really interesting.
And if you do like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, I do want to hear your defense of it, even though I said I hate it and it's terrible. But I am curious as to people's opinions about why they love it. And not just people hate it because it doesn't have Michael Myers. That's silly. I want to hear why you think it's a good movie.
Yes. And we will read your comment or whatever you send us on here, and we will respond to it.
Yes.
Because I would like to know as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at QOTD Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/QOTD Podcast, Tumblr at queensofthedamnpodcast.tumblr.com, and YouTube at Queens of the Damn Podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and TuneIn Radio. You can also follow us on our blog, queensofthedamnpodcast.wordpress.com, to find bonus content and extra information on our episodes.
If you would like to donate to our show, you can find us at patreon.com/QOTD podcast, where you can receive special perks as a listener for becoming a monthly patron. If you would like to make a one-time donation, you can send it to QOTDpodcast@gmail.com on PayPal. We'll see you next week. That sounds like a perfect place to end.
Yep, it does.
Yes.
I'm going to hit stop.
Perfect.
Oh my god, I hung up. No!